Alright lads, enough tootling around. Let's get into it. See what this week's got in store for us. I've been thinking about our situation. Here's my question. Why have this powerful country to the north not invaded us yet? Alright? There's got to be a reason why they haven't already started the invasion. Now maybe it's only because it's militarily correct to subvert this region, Nargis, first, in order to soften it up so that they don't unnecessarily spend resources in moving to the capture. Alright? That is a possibility. What else could it be? Maybe the international alliance that they're part of. At the last meeting they said you're not allowed to go for it yet because if you attack them, the other countries, that will give the other alliance, ATO, the casus belli that they need to knock off one of our countries, and that will send the whole thing into spiralling down. Don't know what it is. That's the two most obvious options to me. Whatever it is, just be thankful and fortify. That's the plan. Alright. Oh, it looks like we've got something over here. I'll deal with the little stuff before I get into the big things. Young swords suspected for a terror attack. Yeah, well, we already know that country's on the brink of civil war, so let's get into it. Alright, well, we'll do all of the little briefs first, and then we'll go for whatever this policy decision or something like that is. So, starting from the bottom, read the report from Wholesword. Workers' Rights Bill nears completion. The Workers' Rights Act of 1954, proposed by Albin Clavin and supported by Minister of Health Pascal Benniwal, is being prepared for the first draft review. Giraffe review, alright. Voices from the Labour Union showed strong signs of support. A session dedicated to the bill in the Assembly proved contentious. The people that form the backbone of the Swedish economy will finally be fully protected by extensive laws, Katarina Horton said, receiving both cheers and boos. Alright. Interesting. Read the report from Wholesword NFP on reforms. Kazaro Kibana, leader of NFP, has announced today that the NFP is completely against any threshold reform. He specifically emphasised that this would lead to unwanted elements entering the Assembly and that he is outright against any changes to the 10% threshold. Yeah, makes sense. In my country the threshold's 5% and we've got all kinds of cretins running around the place. Alright, read the report from Wholesword, PFJP report on reforms. Franz Richter, leader of PFJP, recently outlined the demands for the reform package. He declared that without the implementation of term limits and limited decrees, it would be very difficult for him and his party to stand behind the reform package. Interesting. Interesting. Now, why is he being so skittish about that? Without the implementation of term limits and limited decrees. Not totally sure on what that means. Okay, ban youth organisations in order to stop operations of youth organisations with potential links to the instability. Very likely I'm going to go with this one. Stability Order of 1954, an investigation on the influence of the Young Swords and Red Youth organisations on the post-assassination unrest has concluded. Both organisations haven't officially organised or called for illegal actions, but several low to mid-level leaders from both have links to insightful actions that led to deaths, injuries and instability. This allows us to ban the organisations. Sweet. Okay, so I'm going to take the middle course of either banning both or neither. I'm not going to do one or the other because that's just asking for trouble, and frankly they seem to be reasonably balanced at the moment. I would hate to empower one only by getting rid of their enemy and then suddenly they turn on us, because the way that it works with these extremists is that often they work on who the other one is, although a fair amount they target the centre as well, I suppose. Anyway, so the only downside to banning them is that there could be some kind of backlash, right? On the other hand, I do want our security apparatus to track down and destroy potential communist infiltrators that are coming in from the north and from, I forget the name of the country, but the other country to the south that is the kind of major centre of their international alliance. I should really figure out what both of them are called so I don't just call them, keep describing them instead of naming them. Anyway, so I'm going to go for both because I want the security apparatus to be strong due to previous things that we've discussed. Remember, this is all based on particular things that are going on inside the game. I'm responding to incentives. Alright, read the report from Allsword. Upon receiving the order, thousands of police officers conducted cease and desist operations against the Red Youth and Young Swords organisations. Our forces closed hundreds of organisational offices and affiliated businesses all around the country. Additionally, judges have given orders to block all bank accounts and freeze all assets. Dozens of peaceful protests from the members of each organisation were forcefully dispersed. 2 separate shootouts, one in Yen and the other in Lockhaven, have lightly wounded 5 officers who are being treated in hospitals. Well, no fatalities, so at least thank goodness for that. Most of the organisational capacity of both entities have ceased, but clean-up operations continue. All remaining elements resisting the order are now being considered as violating the law and are being arrested. Go to that's the upside. Now let's see if it comes back to bite us in the arse later. Alright, finalisation of the drafted constitutional changes. This is the big one. So this is one of being one of the centrepiece policies over the last 2 videos, and we really want to be careful about trying to drive this middle course here. It's really important that we throw the libs a bone, as I keep harping on about, but we also want to make really sure that we don't take away the powers of the Supreme Court, because if we don't take away the powers of the Supreme Court, then we can let go of our veto power without worrying about it too much. Alright. I was walking to my office, since today was the day to edit and make the final changes for the proposal to change the constitution of Swordland. The Reform Committee have finally brought tangible results, and the draft of the changes were about to be presented to me. I walked in the marble corridors of the palace, thinking about the huge decisions I was going to take. At the entrance of my office, my secretary Livia greeted me. "Good morning, Mr. President." "Good morning, Livia. How are you today, sir?" "Let's see, I'm about to make a stressful decision, so I'm not feeling that great." "That's how it is." "Sorry to hear." She paused before taking my coat. It looked like she had something on her mind. "Mr. Rain, can you give me a hint about your reform plans? If you ask me, taking away the judge's immunity is long overdue, but it might anger a lot of people in these halls." "You'll find out with the rest of Swordland, sweetheart." "Yeah. I'll take that into consideration. Nothing's been decided yet. That's none of your business, Livia." I'll take that into consideration. That'll soften her up for the blow when it actually arrives. I hope you'll keep me informed. I'll take your coat now. Livia left to hang up my coat. I entered my office and sat down. Not long after, Peter, Lucian and Nia arrived. "Alright, here's the team." "Morning, everybody." "Good morning, Mr. President." "Good morning. Time to finally get this proposal going." I always imagined Peter as an alcoholic. Peter placed the draft in front of me. "Lucian Gallardo, after your modifications, we'll be starting the process." "All right. Can we go over each of the points that are in the discussion for the draft?" "Well, apart from the first 2 sections of decreasing the Supreme Court's authority and limiting the presidential vetoes, nothing else has been agreed on unanimously." Yes, the Assembly is divided. That gives us room for manoeuvre. If the Assembly was unified in one particular direction, it would make the whole job a lot more difficult. I mean, I'd still do have the power to veto it, and as Carl Schmitt says, the real ruler is the one who can declare what the exception to the rule is, or something like that. We could start talking about Section 3. This is about the impeachment process of the President. Currently, in cases of high treason and breaking the Constitution, the Supreme Court may impeach and try the President. Most reformists want the impeachment to be initiated by the Assembly. They think they do not have any power over potential rogue presidents that would abuse their power. Not sure if it is correct to chastise the President this much, though. The Assembly should have oversight over the President. No, I don't want to give the Assembly power. This law is particularly dangerous for you in this case. We will be going against the old guard, and if we prove to be successful in the Assembly, they will be looking for anything they can declare unconstitutional to tackle you. All they need is the Supreme Court to impeach you. Yeah, but they don't hold the Supreme Court, do they? What if we don't succeed? The court can have me impeached for this. Maybe reforms are not a great idea after all. We should define a better impeachment process. We could even remove impeachment altogether. Maybe reforms are not a great idea after all. While I do not have strong opinions about this point, these reforms are vital for the future of our democracy, Mr. President. Section 4. This is regarding the appointment of ministers. Currently, the President is free to appoint anyone from the members of the Assembly. Nobody else is involved in the process. There is definitely a demand to involve the Assembly in the process. We could introduce a confidence vote. That's going a bit too far. I agree we should involve the Assembly more in the process. I think the middle course is the confidence vote option, so that's what we're going to go for. See, I can bend, I can be flexible. That was my suggestion as well. Alright, you're promoted. Peter Vector, I'm sure the reformists would completely support that. The 5th section is about our infamous electoral threshold. Most reformists want to lower the threshold as much as possible. Mr. Richter and his PFJP definitely want to see change on this topic. They find our 10% threshold to be anti-democratic, which is something I also agree with. Yes, but this is a delicate matter. The party, and I mean not even Albin, wants us to change the threshold. They think that this would destroy our party in the long term. Not wrong. The 10% threshold is what allowed us to control half of the Assembly with only a 30% majority in the elections. But the high threshold is the reason why Swedish politics has become so isolated. We should definitely work to decrease the threshold for better representation. Do you think it would really hurt the party? Do you think it would hurt the party? I think this is a national matter, Mr. Rain, not a partisan one. Oh, easy for you to say. It's a matter of both when we have the Communist Party and the Workers' Party of Bludia getting more than 5% vote in the last elections. Exactly. So we can't allow the Communists and Workers' Party to get into the Assembly, so the threshold has to be above 5%, or whatever we predict they will score in the next election. Decreasing the threshold might mean opening their way into the Assembly. Of course, that would mean the USP might lose its majority in the Assembly, sir. If our own democracy is the reason of our downfall, we will have to accept it. Well, that's the principled option. Don't worry, with these reforms we will be even more popular. Yeah, potentially. We can't just give away our majority like that. We can't allow communists to enter the Assembly. That's the one we're going for. It could be destabilising. I know it's a delicate matter, sir, but you still have time to think about these. Lucian continued with the next section. Section 6. This is about the presidential decrees. Reformists demand more limitations to the President's executive powers. Mr. Richter has demanded them to be completely removed. I have suggested to bring some limitations to decrees regarding their applicability. While we keep them, we should try and make sure that they will only be used in emergency situations. We could also make it dependent on an enabling act from the Assembly. Sure, it would make the whole process longer, but as long as we have a majority, nothing really changes. I don't think presidential decrees need any reforms, so that's the nothing changes option. We'll work with the reformists to limit the use of decrees. I may need a bit longer to think about this. So, are these decrees strictly regarding the President's veto? I'd be willing to let go of the veto. Or is this just getting rid of my ability to write presidential decrees and say, put this into motion? Because I don't want to have to push everything through the Assembly. That would massively slow down our response times. And remember, response times may be important in the once the invasion comes about. So I want to push 2. We'll think about the reformists to limit the use of decrees, but I'm actually going to go with 3 and just hedge my bets for a moment, see if we get some more intel before we have to make up our mind. As we've seen, it's important. Intel is important in this game. Sure, you'll have a long time before we start writing the final proposal together. Okay, and next one is Section 7 term limits. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I don't aim to leave anytime soon. We keep the unlimited terms. Term limits are necessary. Play the innocent. Term limits? What term limits? They want us to include previously non-existing term limits. We can't allow somebody like Sol holding onto a seat for 2 decades again. We should establish limits. Yeah, but how long? Like if it's 10 years? Or then maybe. Hey, if people keep electing one person, that means they really are content. The masses are scared of change. Even Sol knew he had to leave, but we will leave it to the president to decide. Yes, he did, but it took a long time. I agree, people should be able to elect the same person if they want to. I will take my time and seriously consider the options before settling on one. Oh yeah, this is starting to turn into a backpedal. Now I'll move on to the 8th section. We are reaching the end. It's the question about the immunity of the judges. While the anti-old guard sentiment is increasing, there are talks that taking away their immunity would give us authority over judiciary. I do not support taking away their power for yourself, Mr. President. The judiciary must be independent and long-lasting. Well, in terms of the domestic political situation, I think this is the right course. While I agree that the current court members are problematic, this is no way to resolve it. The law is supposed to ensure the judiciary's independence by giving legal protection so they can't be pressured. Well, they need absolute immunity in theory, but look at what reality got us. We've got to deal with the most corrupt Chief Justice in the world with no chance to deal with him. We should respect their immunity. They should be able to be impeached. We should crush the old guards to clear ways for further reforms. Alright, settle down, Stalin. Maybe we shouldn't make the Supreme Court our enemies just yet. Let's just keep the reforms light. That is a better strategy. We'll need to sway some of their members to succeed after all. And the last one is the question about Sol's legacy. Basically, his Member of Honour law. It gave him absolute immunity even when he's retired. He is a permanent member of the Assembly as well, but luckily he doesn't really attend anymore. According to the Constitution, the Member of Honour not only has legal immunity, but the state also covers most of their expenses, as well as providing security at all times. It can only be given to somebody by an absolute majority vote in the Assembly and the approval of the President. And that's why Tarquin Sol has that title. He gave it to himself right after his military coup. This law is basically made to save the colonel, and it has a symbolic importance for Swordland because of it. Yeah, I mean, I don't really see the point in turning this into making a problem out of this right now. We must get rid of the senseless law that protects him. He should be able to face justice for the atrocities that has taken place during his rule. Well, look, I agree with you, but I really think that it will be more of a problem. Every president should gain that title after their term. Well, hey, look, demand the people keep me in fat and bacon. We should keep the title, but take away the immunity clause. I think we should respect the law. I agree we should abolish this position. No, I think we should respect this law. Do you want to protect Tarquin Sol, Mr. President? Regardless of him, I see no problem for having a special title for great heroes. Well, regardless of what Mr. Rain decides, we will need to work together to push this agenda. Let's start working on the draft. Alright. Whew. Really getting stuck in deep into the policy on this one, lads. Constitutional changes. Section 1. Presidential vetoes. According to Articles 77 and 82, the President may veto a bill by returning it to the Assembly with a written statement. The articles do not contain any information on how to override a veto. As a consequence, the President has an absolute veto power that cannot be overridden by the Grand National Assembly under any circumstances. So, we are going to have the Assembly, yes. Okay, so here's the options. Remove vetoes. The new Constitution will not include any veto powers. The President may not block any legislation passed by the Grand National Assembly of Swordland. Now, I would consider going for this one the complete removal of vetoes if I decided that it was necessary. However, we have this option, limited vetoes. The new constitution will allow the Grand National Assembly to override a veto with a 3/5 majority. I would probably push that up to a 65% majority if I had a free hand in it, but that's close enough. So this gives the Libs something, and remember, this is not a problem because even if it does get overridden, it goes to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court can override it. And in this we get to look like a good guy reformer who's playing that middle one. Okay. Section 2, Constitutional Amendment Process. According to Article 5 of the Constitution, amendment may be proposed by members of the Assembly with at least 150 signatures. A 2/3 majority vote in the Grand National Assembly and a simple majority vote in the Supreme Court is required for the amendment. As a consequence, the Supreme Court, which is not part of the elected legislative branch, has enormous power in the amendment process. So we have the option, remove the Supreme Court's vote. A constitutional amendment will not require the vote of the Supreme Court. This will remove the judiciary's legislative powers. No, we're not doing that. Excuse me? Are you guys seeing this? I do not wish to. What? Why is it like that? Maybe it is the fact that this is the cornerstone of the whole constitutional amendment, in which case none of it will go through if this doesn't go through. I still don't like it though. What if I try this way? Remove the vetoes. No. Okay, so it looks like this is the only option, and that's that. Well, in that case, I'm not going to remove any of my vetoes. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. This is cutting off all of our room for manoeuvre. Alright, what am I going to do? I'm going to pick the options that are best that I can, and if I can't pick the options that I want, then I will just nuke it. And when we get to the end, I'll say, no, actually we're not going to do that. Okay, the impeachment process. According to Article 17, the President of Suzerain is not responsible, so we need to memorise what the options are. We've chosen limited vetoes. Remove the court's vote. According to Article 17, the President of Suzerain is not responsible for the actions performed in the exercise of presidential duties, except in the case of high treason or violation of the Constitution. In such cases, the President may be impeached by the Supreme Court in joint session. With an absolute majority of its members, therefore, the impeachment process only includes the Supreme Court, and it gives them great power over the executive. So, the President may not be impeached, the Assembly may impeach. The President may be impeached with a 2/3 majority vote in both the Grand National Assembly and the Supreme Court. Okay, this is the one that we're going for. Because a 2/3 majority will be extremely hard to reach in the Assembly, but even if it gets through that, it won't get through the Supreme Court. So this protects us whilst staging down the impeachment process a little bit. Is that correct? Yeah, I think so. Okay. According to the Constitution, the President appoints the ministers to the Council of Ministers from elected members of the Assembly. This requires no confidence vote from the Grand National Assembly. Yes, that's right, so I have a free hand. So what are the options? A confidence vote will be required, or the Grand National Assembly nominates the ministers, or do not change. I am going to get a confidence vote. So for the electoral threshold, we're going to decrease that to 8%, because that will mean that Bludia and Swordland probably, I mean the Bludias and the Bloods and the Communists probably won't be able to get in. We're not going to reduce it down to 3%, that would be terrible. And this also makes us look like a reformer. So we are wearing down our powers somewhat, and I do want whoever follows me to have their hands tied, democratically speaking, but not me. Presidential decrees. According to Article 18 and 51, the President is able to issue decrees on political, social and economic issues that would carry the force of law. They could not contradict the Constitution and are subject to judicial review. Therefore, the President may issue decrees in many subjects without going through the Grand National Assembly. However, the Assembly may pass legislation on the same subjects to override presidential decrees. Well, if that's the case, then I don't see the need to stage it down any. Decrees require an enabling act. No, this is the worst of both worlds. This makes it just as slow, because then it has to go through the assembly, and that takes forever. So that will slow down all of our response times. And what will be the advantage be, democratically speaking? If you're going to do this, you might as well just get rid of them. I'm going to not change them. And term limits. Are we going to institute term limits of 2 terms? I wonder how long the terms are. Probably 4 years, eh? So 8 years. Is 8 years enough for me to achieve everything that I want to do in a presidential position? I'm assuming that we're going to get re-elected in the next term. What's my priority? My priority is... Number 1, protecting Swordland from our aggressive neighbour to the north, so that if there's a war, we survive. And do I have a second objective? Yes, it is to increase the wealth of Swordland as much as possible. Is instituting term limits, does that contradict either of those major objectives? No, it doesn't, so I regard this as a possibility. And whoever follows me, yeah, then it'll be up to them to pick up the baton and carry on. Alright, I'm going to go for it. I don't need to be dictator for life. I'm not interested in that. And can judges be impeached by the Assembly? No, they are not. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to keep the old guard on side. It would enrage them if I did this. Now, as a matter of fact, I would like the most corrupt judge on the Assembly to be impeached and kicked out, but I think at the moment, in terms of domestic politics, keeping the old guard on side is a higher priority for us than getting rid of the corrupt judge, and also who knows how corrupt he is actually, really. But now that I've empowered the security apparatus to smash the youth organisations, once that job is done, they will be powerful enough that hopefully I'll be able to reorient them towards anti-corruption effort. That would be fantastic. Okay. Honorary membership of Tarquin Sol. Yeah, this thing. Abolish the honorary membership. Article 99, and the member of honour will be removed from the Constitution. Every president is an honorary member. No, I'm not going to pick that one. Abolish immunity of honorary members. A member of honour will no longer have an absolute immunity. Well, this is really an appearances. It's pretty much totally symbolic because, I mean, whatever crimes Tarquin Sol committed, he'll be punished for when he meets his maker. On the other hand, it would be good for him to receive some earthly justice too for whatever crimes he committed. But I don't want to create a political enemy, and I don't want to create additional tensions inside the state. Would this resolve any of the tensions? No, I don't think it will, so I will not change it. You're about to make constitutional changes to Swordland. Are you sure about your decisions? Yes, absolutely. Okay. Well, that didn't allow me nearly the flexibility that I hoped. Oh, you hear that? They're coming to take me away. After I made the final changes for the proposal, I showed it to my team. They read them and discussed them among themselves. Lucian spoke afterwards. It looks like the amendments are ready to be proposed, but I have to say this too. The new electoral threshold will be really difficult for the party to accept. Our guys are not fond of that idea. That's true, it'll be tough to get all of their support. Some of our members may try to openly fight against this. I'm prepared to reconsider if it comes to that. We'll figure it out. I'll make sure the party follows me. Yeah, if that's what it comes to. Any other comments before we proceed? I don't think I have any problems with the changes. Me neither. Looks like we can proceed immediately. We'll be working on the wording of the proposal with our legal experts before we propose it. In the meantime, you must introduce this proposal to our party, sir. You'll need a strong speech to get them behind you, but I advise you to first talk to the leaders of both conservative and reformist wings of the party. As far as I'm aware, Mr. Claven supports the reforms already. Mrs. Tory will be the real problem. She became the real heavyweight after we left for the executive. Any advice in regards to dealing with them? As Mr. Vecturn said, Mr. Claven will probably be easier to persuade. We need to unite the party under this, so his support is vital. Mrs. Gloria will be tougher to break. The problem is that she's capable of turning the moderates and the conservatives against us. As much as I don't want to say this, if she makes demands to change the proposal, you may need to give in. Interesting. If they reverse some of the decisions that I didn't want to make, we may still manage to worm our way through this. Wish you good luck for the party, sir. I think we can end the meeting here. We all shook hands and they left the room. Great. Alright, well, look at this. 12 newspapers. Let's go through these and see what we've got, eh? See what the chattering classes have to say about us. The administration announces ban on young swords and red youth. That's right. Protests appear calmer. Very nice. Attacker opened fire on protesters. 17 dead. Jeepers. Wow. Well, he's going away for life if he doesn't get the death penalty. Rain promised reforms. That's right. What does the Larkhaven Times have to say? Preparations underway for the annual Benfey Festival. Don't know what that is. Political freedoms restricted. Gelsword FC and Rika FC derby postponed due to protests. I didn't realise they were going to postpone the footy. Maybe they would have made a different decision. Come on, our boys. Alright, what do we got? Time for women to stand up. Shocking misogynist rally. Sol needs to answer for his crimes. Undemocratic elections of Swordland. Labour Union Rights March. Yeah, you can see the leaning of the radicals, can't you? It's basically a communist front organisation at this point. What do the economists have to say? Upcoming government budget changes? No, that's greyed out, isn't it? Okay, education privatisation proven successful. Yes. Our editorial team immediately analysed the SIPA report recently revealed to assess the standards of education. We were curious to see how the policies of the last decade have begun changing the performance metrics. Lesbia specifically stood out with a jump of 6 positions forward to 5th out of 68. After a research and analysis collaboration with the Vice President of Magnus Cartus and the SMEA chapter leader of OMEC, Organisation for Merkapin Economic Development, we gained critical insights to how Lesbia increased its education quality. Awesome. It boils down to 2 major points. One is the privatisation efforts led by Prime Minister Alvarez that led to most schools in wealthier neighbourhoods, 1,404 to be precise, to be privatised. This lifted a significant budget burden off the state because the wealthy paid for a great education for the kids and were still taxed reasonably in order to divert funds to state schools elsewhere. What a fantastic plan. I wish I'd come up with it. The second major factor was the allowance of minor curricular changes for private institutions that led to major improvements in the student participation, teacher happiness, and boosted the performance of the institutions. Fantastic. Gold stars all round, lads. All in all, the improvements to the system and the massive amounts of 34 billion lira it raised for Lesbia made it a lucrative option. Swordland desperately needs more capital to tackle the recession, and when education is privatised, foreign capital will also aid in establishing quality schools. The Vice President of Magnus Cartus pointed out in the SEPA report doesn't include access to education metrics and that Lesbia has inequality problems. The statement that hasn't been proven with any statistical research from the OMEC, which is why it must be taken with a pinch of salt. Yeah, very likely it will in the short term, well, medium term I suppose, increase inequality. However, if we divert the money that we save out to the provinces, then measured in raw numbers, the inequality will increase, but measured in quality of life metrics, very likely the inequality will remain the same, or potentially even, depending on how much we spend, decrease. That would be great. The Rain administration could be practical about this term and look to the Southern example on how to do positive change, even though opposition from the Minister of Education is expected. Yeah, we already had a talk to her. She's that chick, that communist who wanted us to pay for everything for her when we went to that meeting out in Narbel. Alright. What have we got here? Read the report from Holsword. The Reform Committee has started their preparations. Vice President Vecturn reported that, along with Lucian Gallarda, the committee has started working on the written aspects of the package as per the needs outlined previously. They will soon get the legal team involved to complete the writing process. The needed 150 signatures for the proposal have started to be collected within the USP. Alright, very good. And what have we got over here? Dinner with the Business Council members, Restaurant Esteria, Lochhaven. Anything else I need to do before that? Whoa. No, okay. What does this say? City information. The prestigious city of Lochhaven is the financial centre of Swordland. It contains the largest port in the country, which is also the third busiest on Merkapa. Located in the Nagas region, the city is prominent for the entertainment and tourism industry that draws millions of visitors every year. The main opposition party, the PFJP, have a strong presence in the city. Yep, sprawling port city and primary trade hub. Very good. I wonder what they've got to say for themselves. We were in Lochhaven to work with the Business Council to assess weaknesses in the economy. Simon organised a dinner with the affluent economic figureheads of Swordland. When we arrived, the streets were bustling with activity, even though the atmosphere in the country was tense. Lochhaveners didn't seem very worried. Together with Walter Tusk, Edith Agnock, Mikhail Avon and Simon Holl, we entered the renowned Asteria restaurant by the coast. Let's see who we got here. Nice moustache, dude. Edith Agnock, economist and banker. Mikhail Avon, righto. And Simon Holl. A short blonde man whose embroidered pocket read manager greeted us and waved his arms in excitement as he told us how pleased he was to have us in his establishment. I bet. Beaming with pride, he led us to a private room and got us seated at a large table covered for the occasion with a maroon tablecloth. We were quickly served by a group of servers. Walter spoke as they started taking our orders. I recommend the Lochhaven salmon of this place, President. I know that you're from Lochhaven, but I bet you haven't tasted anything like this before. I do love a good salmon, mate. Don't get me wrong, Mr. Tusk, but of course I've tasted the greatness many times here already. Yeah, well, sure. Yes, and a salad, please. Thank you. The servers placed glasses in front of each of us and served bread and water. After they were done taking orders, they quickly left us alone in the private room. Mr. President, I didn't have the possibility to thank you for coming today. Your presence means a great deal. Yeah, it better. Indeed, sir, it's an honour to dine with you. Please, the honour is all yours. Well, it's great to be here with the members of the Business Council. We should thank Simon for organising this meeting. No need for that. I hope everybody enjoys the evening. Someone gestured at the expensive-looking red wine bottle that one of the servers had just brought to the table. Mr. President? Yes. Do you want some, sir? It's Chateau de Flamenco from 1934. Let's try it. Someone poured some wine in my glass and waited for me to taste it before filling it up. I took a sip. The taste of the wine was immediately stimulating and delightful to my palate. I was immediately reminded of our visits to my father's vineyard when I was a little child. The wine's sweet and bitter flavours exploded in my mouth. The aroma of gooseberries and lilacs tumbled across my tongue, and my mouth tingled with them long after I'd swallowed. Oof! How is it? Is the taste to your liking? Tastes like heaven. Reminds me of my father's vineyard. I've heard that he was a big wine connoisseur. May he rest in peace. Thank you. Simon filled up my glass. After filling everybody's glasses, Simon stood up and raised his glass. I'd like to raise a toast to all of you here today. We're meeting here tonight in difficult times, but I believe that with hard work, cooperation and trust, we will get through this period as well. I'd like to thank Mr. Rain again for his decisiveness when it comes to economic policies. I am sure we will stop this recession. You better believe it, bud. I also thank Mr. Tusk for being here with us today. His presence is an honour. And, of course, my colleagues from the Business Council, Mrs. Agnock and Mr. Avon. Without you, none of these would have been possible. Let's drink to future cooperation and growth. For a prosperous Swordland. Everybody raised their glasses and toasted each other. Hear, hear. Cheers, lads. After a couple more minutes, the servers arrived with our meals. When I tasted the food, I went back to my past. It reminded me of my childhood in the city. Even though I couldn't recall much about my father, I remembered that he also loved the food of Asteria. So how did you find the food of the best fine dining restaurant in Lockhaven, Mr. President? Fine food is like fine art, but this particular one is a masterpiece. I know exactly what you mean. Art is something else. It embodies so much about us and the world surrounding our lives. And food can... There is an art of everything. The art of making money, food, wine, and love. Yeah, the guy sounds like a real lover of life, lads. He's right up my alley, this fellow. I think we're going to get along. How are things going in the Maroon Palace? The pressure must have increased after you attended that funeral. The pressure was already high, but not much has changed. It did, but it was the right decision. I have to say the future is looking good. It's tough, but our work on the new constitution continues. It did, but it was the right decision. That's the one for us. Of course, I didn't mean to criticise your decision. Mikhail, please, I'm not so thin-skinned. As we conversed with Mikhail, I heard Walter raise his voice in an apparent argument with Edith and Simon. We both stopped to listen. Arcasia knows the right way of doing business. Their approach to the world is real and raw. I'd prefer that cutthroat approach in comparison to the niceties. Well, I mean, it's a nice country to visit too. I have travelled there often on business trips. Their attitude on... all countries are nice to visit if you have the cash. Yeah, I'm just going to let them go for it, I think. Mikhail joined in. It certainly depends on what you're looking for. Cultural tourism doesn't require a fancy hotel. Last time I went somewhere for that sort of thing was at university, and even then we had our wild times thanks to Conrath's connected entourage. Also, Walter is taking us down the rabbit hole again. By the way, I saw that underhaul construction has already started with the railway construction. That project will surely boost our economy. The mood is already very positive. I have to congratulate Mr. Rain for starting such a massive project. Oh, that's just the beginning. Thank you for your support, Mr. Avon. Yeah, sure. No need for that, Mr. Avon. The state is just doing its job. No. There's credit to be taken. I'm not going to leave it on the table. 3, I hope the investment returns will be great. Exactly. We all hope so, Mr. President, but I think it will work out. Mr. Hull also deserves credit, of course, our great economy minister. Is there a joke coming? Why, I thought you said you were great at economy. He laughed. I've heard that you brought a new villa, Simon. Well, I don't comment on rumours, but I'll make an exception since we are among friends. It's true. You are doing a great job, so you deserve it. A new villa is a bit much, especially in this economy when people are suffering. There's no need to be snippy. Where is the property? It's a small seaside villa at the outskirts of Conriat. It's just a modest house with a swimming pool and a small golf course on the property. Great city to buy real estate in. Conrad is seeing a surge of investments. Modest. Are you being sarcastic with me? So you're becoming a neighbour to Marcel Coronti. I'm going to talk it up because, you know, confidence is the backbone of a strong economy. So if I make it sound like the investments are, you know, really booming, maybe we'll keep the gears spinning. Underhaul Construction made a fortune constructing houses there. Where there is demand, there is supply. The market rules supreme, as always. Edith, who was sitting to my left, gently put her hand over my arm for a few seconds. Come on, let's not talk about finance or politics for now. We came here to relax. She turned to Walter and Simon. Isn't that right, gentlemen? They nodded at her and took a sip from their drinks. She slightly leaned towards me. So, Mr. Rain, why don't you tell us what's behind that strong character of yours? I've heard that your father was a very wealthy man. Would you say it contributed a lot to your success? Let's see, it didn't contribute much. My success has nothing to do with that. It certainly helped. Money opened a lot of doors. We had money, but we weren't happy. I learned a lot about life thanks to my absent father. What's that supposed to mean? Well, there's no point in lying. It helped. Money opened a lot of doors. Of course it did. What kind of question is that, Edith? I never met your family, Mr. President. How are they doing, if you don't mind me asking? They're doing great. We have no problems. Yes. That's great to hear. Your son must be very proud of you. Family is everything. My advice would be to make sure that Frank has a solid relationship with you. He is your future, after all. Well, I couldn't agree more, Mr. Walter Tusk. Sir, you have a fine mind. See, didn't I tell you this guy was all right? I'm trying my best to be a good father to him. He seems to be somewhat introverted. He's going through the teenager period. It's difficult to connect with him. He's a little shy. The kid can handle himself. He doesn't need anybody else. Why do you even care? Wowee. Well, it's nice that the game lets you be a bit of a prick, but I'm not going to choose that option. Yep. I wish that was my son's biggest problem. Darren seemed to be doing fine. I saw his yacht party in Bentley made the local news. Well, the rascal didn't even ask for permission to use the yacht and just took it. He basically stole it. Good news is that I finally convinced him to go to university. He'll be studying economics in Lockhaven Business School. That's a good choice. Having a degree in Swordland separates you from the rabble, and we especially need more people who understand economics. Maybe your son will be a great future economist. Ugh, I wouldn't count on that. But I agree, we need more economists to enter politics. Thankfully, we have a president who seems to be as well versed in economics as Alfonso. He turned to me. I'm very confident in your abilities to fix our recession. Look at what he caused. Studying doesn't get you to the finish line. Alfonso was an inspiration to all reformists. We're in this mess because of him. His political failure nearly destroyed us. Thank you. Thank you. That's what I know I'm going to go for. I hope we can repair the damages to our economy. We can't fail like Alfonso did. A correction. It wasn't his policies that destroyed him. It was the old guard. What do you mean by that? Play the innocent, you see. He threatened their economic power base over the country through a vast privatisation plan. They removed him and backed you after. Walter, stop with the conspiracy theories. I think we've had enough drinks. Is that right? He threatened their economic power base over the country through a vast privatisation plan. They removed him and backed you after. Alright, well when I start doing the privatisations, of which there will be some, I'll need to keep an eye on, hopefully keep a line open to the old guard faction and see what their reaction is to the situation. Everyone went quiet. After a long silence, followed by some chit-chat, Walter ordered a bottle of whiskey. Ooh, I could go for a Suntory, I tell you what. That's one good-looking bottle. The waiters brought one of the finest Arcasian whiskies. It was time for a toast. I stood up to give a toast. I raised to our health and happiness, constructive and beneficial future, to an equal society without class differences, to our wealth and success, to a constructive and beneficial future. May our differences be set aside for a good future. They say hope dies last. To the future. Raised. I think it's time we call it a night. Edith stood up. Most of us were a little tipsy at this point. I want to thank you, Mr. President, for joining us, and you, Simon, for putting all this together. Thank you all for being here. That was great. Thank you. Thanks for being here. After bidding our farewells, we slowly walked out of the restaurant. The moon was shining bright as everyone except Walter left in their luxury cars. President, a moment alone, please. He called me inside the small VIP lounge. Follow him inside. Usually the Lotherberg spokesman doesn't directly comment on the administration, but I'd like to say a few things since this was a special evening. I'm all ears. Finally, a president that listens to the people. It won't be easy to pass the new constitution through the Assembly and the Supreme Court. We could help you get it through if you in return help us with a few economic requests. Walter lit his cigar and took a few drags before continuing. The consensus is that we see eye to eye in the economic direction we have taken by promoting a market economy. I'm glad that the group is supportive. Okay, true. I'm interested to collaborate further in our shared interests. Keen. Also true, but maybe not a strong bargaining position. 3, good to know, but not sure how this concerns me. There we go. Let him put something on the table before I respond to it. Oh, it definitely should, President. He looked me in the eye. You rejected our previous discreet offer to pick Underhall Construction for the execution of the first mega infrastructure project. However, you still made the right choice. Your party not getting that donation is unfortunate, though. Why someone wouldn't want that money is beyond me. We are aware of the upcoming tax meeting, and it would be a step in the right direction if private corporations would get a tax cut. To boost the economy with job creation, of course, and the positive side effect would be our support to the administration throughout the entire term. Let's see. I will give large private corporations a tax reduction. I will make tax decisions objectively. I can't promise you anything. 3, Lotherberg will not influence me. I'm going to go with number 2. I will make tax decisions objectively, and I can't promise you anything. See, let him lure me out if he really wants to put something. Oh, let's not be hasty. The recession will end if Lotherberg is on your side, President. Why can't we just all be friends? Well, I don't think so. I have other plans for the economy. I mean, look, I'm planning on dropping the tax rate if I can anyway. Right, so that's not really the issue. Maybe we can. I'll see what I can do. I mean, because I still want to keep him on side. Excellent, glad to hear this. The group wants a private corporation tax cut and a privatisation in healthcare and education. Well, I think we can probably do all of those things anyway. Too much of an ask. On third thought, I have to reject. I will give those, yes. Well, if those are the only 2 options, I would rather take something a little more medium. But, you know, I am very satisfied to hear this. To us in the prosperous future of Swordland. He smiled. It is assuring to know that we are allies. Glad we could come to an agreement, Walter. Yeah, so now I'm going to choose the first one because the subtext is that he's now on side with me and he is politically aligned with me, right? So the fact that I've done this, I'm now saying to him, you know that the cost of this is that from now on you're politically aligned with me, right? Rather than just glad we could come to an agreement, which is me giving him something because he asked it and not asking for anything in return. See you, President. Walter left and Serge came to pick me up. Get into the car. I entered the car and we drove to our residence in Lockhaven. Serge took the seaside route. Fantastic. Alright, lads, that was a good day's work. We got a lot done. And that leaves us with some things here. Let's just do the news before we wrap up, eh? Bill on the rights of workers being drafted. Yes, President met with the Business Council. And it's a secret, that's very good. Moorville mine disaster, 112 dead. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. Shouldn't have read the news. Another gloomy end, but we did get a lot of good work done. So, I'll see you next time, lads.